even though she's very accomplished in the academic field, she will share more from a professional point of view. So hi, Ola, I would like to welcome you here. Can you introduce yourself a little bit before we start?
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so honored and also a privilege to be here with great nurses all over the world. I see we have more than 100 attendees. That's great work. Ogika, thank you so much for the invitation. And I want to say a special thank you again to the Nurses for the Future for this invite. For counting me worthy, actually. So my name is Olayinka Aremu, as I've been introduced. I'm originally from Ireland. From Nigeria. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to be Irish anyway soon. I'm originally from Nigeria. I was born into the world about 30 something years ago. So I moved to Ireland 5 years ago, and yeah, it's been awesome. At the moment, I'm a PhD student. Let me put it that way, humbly a student with Trinity College in Dublin. I'm a registered nurse, registered midwife, Nigeria, registered public health nurse in Nigeria as well. But I'm only practicing, as a general nurse here. And I work at the moment as a clinical nurse manager, too, in patient flow management with the HSC. So it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you have a nice time.
Thank you so much for being here and for being willing to share your experience. So, of course, we can go ahead and share right away, since you yourself have gone through migration from Nigeria to Ireland, have been gone through relocating. So, I would really just want to ask if you can just name a few push and pull factors or some pro and cons which nurses take into consideration when they're deciding to go abroad, and what are they?
Okay, so thank you so much for that. When I got this invitation, the future of nursing is international. I did ask myself in the reverse format and say, is the future of nursing international, just to help me to really have a good grasp of what we are talking about. I put up a slide here, but there's no need to share. I will just discuss it straight to the point. Um, 1 in every 8 nurses practice in a country other than the one where they were born or trained. That's an established evidence from literature. So if we have 8 nurses in a particular place, one of them will be practicing in another country. And at the moment, I'm one of them practicing in Ireland, even though I was trained in Nigeria. So looking at the future of nursing, I kind of put what I call the 3D of the future of nursing, like demand, data-driven, and diversity. So there have been a lot of I would say shortages. We know that it's great so shortages when it comes to nurses around the world. And, there are shortages, there are increased number of inflow of nurses as well. And diversity in the sense that we get to have different nurses, different culture in different regions, in different countries. So all these are my 3Ds of the future of nursing. All these as well as, led to what WHO and the ICN actually put up a report that the global nursing workforce is estimated as being about 27.9 million nurses. So we can see that data and it is huge, but at the same time, it is not enough, to match up with the demand that is out there. Pre-pandemic, the global shortage of nurses was estimated at 5.9 million nurses. You can see that huge. So there is that huge demand, and we have data to support this. At the same time, you're talking about diversity. Nurses, we function, we are everywhere. We are supporting patients from different walks of life. We meet Filipinos, we meet every different patient from different background. At the same time, we have to provide that diversified care. So the demand for nurses means demand on nurses. That's one thing we need to know, that even though there is so much great demand, at the same time, there are demands on nurses. So going to the question about the push and pull, definitely there are pushes and there are pulls. Let me put it that way. So to address the nursing shortage, it is essential that we have an equally diverse nature, diverse nurse workforce to care for a progressively more diverse population. So without I'll say without sufficient, well motivated, and supported nurses, the global health system cannot function. So even though there are emerging evidence of increased active and fast track international recruitment by high income countries, it is important that we every country, according to what ICN was proposing, that every country be self-sufficient. So that self-sufficiency indicator is determined by assessing the percentage of the total nursing workforce in a country that was foreign trained. The higher the percentage, the less the country is self-sufficient, if you understand what I mean. So the main source of new supply should be to invest in training more nurses domestically. And we know that the secondary source, of course, is open to countries to have the available resources to resort to active international recruitment. Now we know that this international recruitment has their pros and their cons. So international recruitment and not migration, we like moving from one country to another in search of employment. As I moved to Ireland, is increasing, and you want to ask, why did you move? And some of those questions. There are a lot of reasons why nurses move around the world, but what are the push and the pull? Now, the global shortage is not the sole determining factor for why nurses enter migration process. It's not just because we want to fill in the gap. There are underlying reasons which are complicated. For me myself, I'll say because I wanted career progression. I wanted something more. We've read a lot of foreign books, and you just see how things are done. I wanted to have that feel, and like one thing I told myself, I want to be an author. We have nurses writing. I want to be a nurse author as well. So those are kind of the push from my hand. So in the home country, or I would say the source country, substandard conditions or circumstances encourages nurses to leave their country or location of work, and this kind of represent the push factor. So the push factor could be maybe they want to be able to, just like the demand is high, to fill up that gap. Or most importantly, I think it's because nurses leave their country or location because they want to improve their condition, because they want they are trying to get out of a substandard culture, if you get what I mean. So talking about the push factor, I have about 7 here. I'll just run through it. The first one I have there is low wage compensation. So when I say push, that is what is taking nurses out of their source country or their home country. So the conditions of the recipient countries present a pull factor as they attract and facilitate the movement, whereas it's the opposite. So low wage compensation. I remember when I was in Nigeria, my salary the last time, 5 years, was 80,000 naira. I think 85,000 naira, even as a nurse tutor. So a nurse tutor here will be getting minimum of 60,000 euros per annum. I was getting 80,000 naira per month. So like it's not even up to, I'll say, my salary in a year in Nigeria was like my salary in a month here in Ireland. You understand? So the low wage compensation actually been like a push factor for nurses going out. Limited career opportunities as well. Like I said, nursing is evolving, the healthcare is evolving. There are career opportunities that you find outside, and you said, I want to give it a try, but we don't have that, in our source country. Limited educational opportunities as well, ability to progress. We have nurses moving from not just being a staff nurse, you have that different specialty, be an AMP, a nurse practitioner, a DMP. All these are evolving, and nurses want to be part of that. So if you are in a country where there are limited educational opportunities, of course, is a push factor. Lack of resources to work effectively is another major one, and we can see this even from the pandemic period. To be honest, like we have shortages of PPEs, of technology, of equipment, and so on. So everybody wants to work in a resourceful area. That's one of the things I enjoyed, or that got me attracted to Ireland. Moving here, I had there's so many things I haven't seen in my life. Probably saw it in the textbook, but it makes working as a nurse very easy and effective. So another push factor is unstable and I say dangerous working conditions, which happens in some settings as well, especially when there are low resources. I find like lack of social or retirement benefits as well is a major push factor. I'm not retired, but I understand even from retired nurses from Nigeria. Most of them are not well paid. Their pensions are delayed, and it's not just nurses, generally. So when you have another country where they offer so much retirement and social benefits, it's a push factor. Unstable political environment, I'm going to say this particularly. There are so many, political unrest in major countries, especially, in the down part, and I think globally now. So if you have a country that is more peaceful, you want to migrate there, and I want to give it a plus for Ireland about that. So that's one of the pull. Those are the push. Do you want me to go ahead and talk about the pull as well?
Yes, please go ahead. If you have a list of pull factors, that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
So I do have a list there. So about the pool, like I said, in the other is the other way around. So countries, the condition of recipient countries represent a pull factor as they attract and facilitate the movement of nurses towards that country. So they are recipients. So International Center on Nurse Migration actually reported that the primary causes of migration stem from a desire for more professional development. That's from the nurses. So from the recipient country's point of view now, what they're looking for is we want people to fill in the gap. There's so much high demand. So number one there is availability of jobs. So much jobs out there, vacancies, trying to fill in, as vacant space due to the increased healthcare demand. So that's the push factor. And when the demand is not able to meet with the supply, then international countries start looking for more people to join in, and that's a push factor. Opportunities for professional or career advancements is another push factor. These things are available, so it's like a selling point from the I would say the recipient countries, that we can offer you professional career advancement, and because of that we are welcoming you, that kind of way. um Another pull factor I would say is quality of life improvement. When you're working in a place where you are recognized, where you are remunerated well, it improves your quality of life. You have a lot of health benefits, insurance, and things like that to cover you as a nurse. So all this can improve quality of life. Sensitive employment policies. So there are structure. That's one thing. There are structure. It's not just about uh, the way we do things. So there are structure, there are policies to follow, and all these are major pull factors that I see around. Recognition of professional expertise. So one of the things that I really love about Ireland, I know other countries might be applicable as well, is that they consider your work experience when they are placing you in your new role. So even as a nurse educator, when I started here, my years of experience really counted, in my placement. So this is another pull factor, that we attractive salary. I don't want to forget to say this as well. So they pull it out there. The salary is attractive. Even though there are so much the high cost of living, cost of living is on the increase now, but you can still be able to see this is how much I'm earning, and you have that sense of accomplishment kind of. So bills are there to pay, taxes and all that. You don't want to forget about that, but there are attractive salaries as well. So those are my pull factors. Thank you so much. If I remember anything, I'll come back.
Yes, thank you so much for that extensive list. And I think you covered quite a lot of the thoughts that nurses have when they're deciding whether to go abroad or not, whether to
Mhm.
leave their source country or not. So I think you made quite a clear picture. So thank you for that. And actually, you spoke from personal experience as well quite often. So I think that is very useful when someone has passed through the thing themselves.
Yeah.
But actually, my next question would address if the pull factors beat, let's say, beat the nurse, and they want to, and they are attracted, and they want to go abroad. What kind of limitations would the nurse that is migrating experience in a sense of, let's say, administrative or bureaucratic procedures when nurses are moving abroad, or let's say even cultural differences, language barriers, and so on?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Bureaucracy, administrative. So I'll start from my personal experience. Like I said, I moved to Ireland 5 years ago. Even though before then, I've been trying to travel out, but basically not to work. I wanted to do my masters. So I've always been applying to schools, I was refused US visa, I think twice. I couldn't make it to the UK because I got pregnant and I had a baby. So like they have all of process like that. So there are a lot of processes administrative wise, procedures to follow, when you're traveling out. The first thing that you have to have the language proficiency, that is the English proficiency. So I started writing, studying for IELTS, even in the midst of full-time work, full-time motherhood, and have to travel about 30 minutes from home to work every day, pregnant most of the time, so a lot of processes like that, like you have to travel to another state to write an exam because the test center is not available in your state, so on like that. But I'll say there is an irreducible minimum level of bureaucracy in any complex system. So it's not just about migration. There are rules and processes which are essential means to manage risk, and these countries have put in all these processes in the context of health and care, keep people safe and help ensure a consistent level of quality care and outcomes across the country. But of course, excess bureaucracy hinders nurses. We know that. So I'll just quick mention about some of the. I try to make a list as well: administrative and bureaucratic factor. Even though prospective immigrants have to strategically negotiate fast changing immigration laws and policies, which are changing, they keep changing, they keep changing. And some of this you're not even aware of it until you get to that stage. But my encouragement to be for nurses to be very resilient and creative as well. So bureaucratic routes to migration are also punctuated. Sometimes they come with small victories, like when you have your police record handed in, you feel that sense of victory. Oh, I'm getting there, I'm progressing. Or when you have an official email that you have passed your IELTS. I All my IELTS that I had to write as the English language proficiency, I passed at first sitting, even though sometimes, the 2 years gap or the cap that is on it will expire and I have to apply again. So language proficiency is a major, I'll say, factor when it comes to administration and bureaucracy. Migrant nurses, especially from non-speaking English speaking country. Now, I'll say non-English speaking, Nigeria is an English speaking country. In fact, we from nursery school, from the time we started school, we were taught in school with English. English is our official language, so it's kind of very condescending sometimes. I feel, why do I have to do language proficiency? Why do I have to prove that I can speak English when all my life I'll be speaking English? In fact, we even consider our native language as a vernacular. If I put it that way, like you should not speak your native language in classroom, which is kind of opposite here. Even in Ireland, Irish is compulsory for students. Yoruba or Nigerian languages are compulsory, but they are not taken as important as English. So it's kind of really frustrating, and I think there have been a lot of debates out there, consultations and petitions about why English language should still be a requirement to relocate, to migrate from, especially from countries where English is their speaking, official languages like that. So the language proficiency is key for me. It shouldn't be, or maybe we have to that need to be reviewed. I'm happy that NMC UK, they've started some consultations. They've done that. I think they started June or July, about how they can modify the English language proficiency. Alongside, alternatively, the OET came, which is the occupational English testing, which I feel is an added advantage to nurses, especially and healthcare professionals, because they are able to also learn about healthcare communications in a developed country, or like in the international world, which might be different from their own, source country. So I find that a little bit more, progressive, because it's not just testing about the grammar or the skill of English. It's also testing and training, helping us to improve their healthcare communication. The second factor I have there is the nursing syllabus and curriculum. Yeah, this is really, I say, though, like I said, these countries that set up all this procedure, they have their reasons, because they want the best healthcare quality and so on. But nursing syllabus, I believe nursing is universal, nursing is global. We shouldn't have a nursing curriculum or syllabus in Africa different from what is obtainable in the US, in the UK, or in Ireland or in Europe. It should be global. Nursing is global. Our skills, our everything we do is global. So why should there be like some part of a particular syllabus is not up to standard or it does not show competency? So I think the WHICN or whoever is responsible for that, we need to look at that. So for instance, nurses coming from Africa, most they categorize them as G3. So if you are coming from a country where English language is not your primary in quotes language, so they are considered as G3. So that means your syllabus needs to they will scrutinize your syllabus. I founded and I also run Synergy International Nursing Network, where we give a lot of support to international nurses moving to Ireland and the UK. And I've come across so many, especially of late, that part of the process of submission, your application, you have to submit the syllabus of your school. And we know what a syllabus of your College of Nursing. Some are about 250 pages, 300 pages, and this candidate had to scan each of the page, sign or stamp each of the page, and upload and send it to for the assessment. This is ridiculous. Like I feel like it's ridiculous. It's just too much. Why can't we standardize the nursing syllabus? Nursing is global. Nursing is universal. So that's a major another bureaucratic factor I find there. And because of this, after review, the decision might be, oh, your academic qualification is not up to the standard, and then nurses have to go through adaptation, have to write a lot of exams to prove their competency. I find that's really overwhelming, and it's frustrating for international nurses migrating. Work experience is another factor from my experience as well. And most nurses in some countries, even though they have 20, 30 years of experience in their source country, they are not able, they have to start from afresh. They have to start from the lowest level. Why? That's because they feel like, no, you can't. It's it's condescending, to be honest, and it's discouraging for nurses having spent all their life in nursing, and then because they are migrating, they have to start from level zero. Uh, like I said, some countries like Ireland will consider your years of experience, but we still have some countries that do not, and you have to start. For instance, in UK, you have to start from band five. That is a band five, and ridiculously, and some trusts or some organizations are even offering band three to start because they are waiting for their exams and OSCE. I think this needs to be reviewed. They are very, very frustrating. Test centers is another bureaucratic factor. Availability of test centers in source country. So I'm going to be, I will use the example of NCLEX for Nigerian community. Even Africa, there are limited test centers for NCLEX. In Africa, I think there was one before, but no more. I don't know what happened. And nurses had to travel to the Philippines to travel out to another country to write NCLEX exam. An average cost for processing this traveling, including the exam fee, is nothing less than 1.5 million naira or more. And nurses spend so much because of inavailability of test center. IELTS, we know they are available, but they are not generally available like that. OET has limited availability of test centers. I'm talking about Nigeria because this is my area and what I know of. So apologies, and I know this is applicable to other African countries and some other countries as well. So we need to work on that. Cost is a major thing. I just believe that it seems more like sometimes these international countries or recipient countries are making more money, bringing in nurses than they are actually giving back to them because the cost of the exams are outrageous. Somebody looking for a greener pasture and you expect the person to be able to pay 2008 euros for an exam. Uh, I don't understand. So it's really ridiculous. That needs to be looked into. Documentation processing is so demanding and long. I don't know, like too much, too many paperwork, too many. You're doing this, you're submitting this, too many certified copy. Yes, I believe to prevent fraudulent activities. There's all these procedures are there, but I think they can still be minimized, reduced to the barest minimum to make it easy for nurses to migrate. Red list, we know about the red list, especially from the pandemic period, where some countries are placed on the red lists. WHO have their reasons for doing this, but I think that's another administrative factor that was in place. And I have police certificates for security reasons as well. You need to get your thumb printing, you need to do all that. And so that's another administrative factor. Vaccination, medical checks, this another process. And I'm planning up time. It takes a longer time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ola, for all of your amazing insights. And I believe you really touched some crucial things, some crucial topics that, for example, that someone that is not in the nursing community or that someone who has not been even thinking about relocating, that really can't begin to understand. For example, as you said, and I see that in the comments, our nurse from Nigeria, Yusuf, who is currently based in Hungary, he wrote, "Thank you, Oliang, for that point on English for Nigerians." And I think that that is something that if you hadn't shared here with us today, that maybe some could not even begin to imagine that that is a barrier that nurses from, let's say, countries where English is most used still have to go over. So, and thank you so much for all of your interesting points, for all of your details, for all of your personal experiences that you shared with us. We really, really appreciate your insights. But as you said, yes, I think we're a little bit running out of time. So I think that we can go ahead and start with our second speaker for the day. Of course, please remain remain active since we have quite a few questions in the chat. So we will address them in the question and answer sessions after our conversation with Ms. Tihana from Croatia, who we have here to speak.
Okay, so thank you so much. I'll go to the next question, which is talking about how limiting are the language barriers and cultural differences. So, as an international educated nurses, if you're trying to travel or go to other countries, there are definitely language barriers that we know and cultural differences. Working in a new culture can be overwhelming for many nurses working in foreign countries. As an international educated nurse myself, I've had my share of this and growing through it and learning through it. Just to say that I had a presentation done, and this is recorded for anyone interested. It's actually still available on Eventbrite, about culture shock and workplace integration for internationally educated nurses. So if you're interested in this, it's very, very helpful, because as we know that we experience culture shock coming from a different area, and it's sometimes be very hard for you to integrate. I've gone through that phase, so we need a lot of support from the recipient or from the host nurses and the hosts, healthcare workforce, the nurse leaders, the managers, and so on. So we can overcome this. So talking about the factors, there are so many reasons for culture shock or for cultural barriers. We have professional issues, social issues. We have international nurses coming from different family background, communication issues, talking about language barrier, English language and all that, and sometimes lack of training and technical competence issue. All these are the reason for the cultural barriers that internationally educated nurses go through. All right. So, to answer that question about the language barriers and cultural differences, I would say that increased global mobility of nurses has created the need to address the educational needs of migrating nurses. And, a large percentage of these nurses require additional language and professional education. So, developing proficiency with a new language has been documented as posing challenges for new immigrants, especially since Language proficiency is a key requirement of international nursing regulatory bodies. Previously, unrecognized barriers such as like the attitude and beliefs about required English language and nursing communication competencies, which may hinder their ability to meet local practice standards, need to be explored. So miscommunication and communication errors can come by when there are language and cultural barriers, and this needs to be looked into. Language and communication difficulties are one barrier that has negative impacts on the integration of nurses into the host country. We need to start looking at, taking into cognizance the communication with patients, with co-workers, including physicians and other healthcare professionals, is a core competency in nursing. So when there is miscommunication and communication errors, these are associated with lower quality of patient care and safety. So I'm not surprised when international and nursing bodies are really particular about language proficiencies, because it's not, in a way, it doesn't say that you are not competent, but it has that way of portraying like a lower quality. And when people don't understand your communication style or what you're trying to say, they find it difficult to trust your care in that way. So bridging education should be required. These programs need to be designed to address English language competency and nursing communication skills of non-native English speakers. Challenges for migrating nurses include, they are feeling like an outsider sometimes, and they need to be trusted and valued by the host nurses. So host nurses also need to support and help the international migrating nurses. There are differences relating to the degree of autonomy and assertiveness of nurses in the clinical practice, which we need to look into as well. Data has shown that 49% of migrant nurses found that work practices were different from those in their home countries. Of course, I have experienced this, and speaking from experience there. So cultural differences is also an issue. 90% of nurses have reported that the support of preceptors are beneficial to them, and they found hospital orientation programs to be valuable. So we need to develop more on this as well. Migrant nurses are, they perceive that non-nursing professionals were more difficult to communicate with. I don't know why, particularly when this involve being assertive and delegating task. We have a lot of nurses complain about the healthcare assistants, not cooperating well when it comes to delegations and all that. So there is a strong need for cultural education for both the staff and the patient about migrant nurses. They need to start doing a lot of workshops and in-service education, which are needed, on key practices and procedures that are performed within the healthcare settings. There are a lot of specific learning outcomes that will be derived as well. So go to the next question. There is talking about how can nurses who are willing to relocate not only be attracted but retained at their new posts. So again, we say that, like in my dialect, they used to say you can force a horse to the river, but you can't force a horse to drink the water. So sometimes when the attractiveness of the international countries, when nurses get there, we need to do things to also retain them, because we've had a lot of cases where nurses migrate to a particular country and another year they are moving to another. So they're always looking for greener pasture. Nurses are always looking, and it's not just peculiar to nurses. So everyone is always looking for greener pasture somewhere and somewhere. So how can nurses who are willing to relocate not only be attracted, or even those that are already relocated, how can we retain them at their new post? So I have a few there. I just say first of all is we should stop redeploying nurses outside their specialty. No, so we've had a lot of cases where a nurse who is working in maybe a theater nurse, ICU nurse, was actually interviewed and offered a job to be an ICN nurse or a theater nurse and are moving to the country, the host country now, they are placed in A&E or they are asked to work in a general ward, which is, or maybe a pediatric unit where they don't have that experience, they don't have that, confidence to work in that setting. So they get easily burnt out and, worked out and they are looking for an exit. So we need to stop redeploying nurses outside their specialist area. It's also important that nurse leaders or the host countries be strategic during recruitment, or recruitment companies or agencies, organizations during recruitment, that you're not just so out there that you just want to take, you're also putting out offers, competitive offers that will make, the nurses see that you actually care more for them than you care for just the filling of the job or the filling the gap. So we need to be strategic about that. And it's also important, which I consider will be very, embracing to international nurses as well, to establish a nurse residency program where a nurse is not just coming to fill in the gap, but they are integrated into an existing nurse residency program that will help them to grow career wise. And so it's not just come work. We have 89 bed, we have these, and we need to also invest in nurses. I'm a pro, I would say ardent pro and passionate about investing in nurses. So it's not just about the salary, and we know that sometimes the salary does not even count, because before you think of the taxes of the bills and you're just like, what am I working for? There are other ways we can invest in nurses to help them, to retain them. And a nurse residency program, will be an added advantage. At the moment, I'm working with a group of nursing leaders, global nursing leaders, to start the nursing residency program, clinical fellowship program in Nigeria. We hope to unveil this in the coming months, hopefully. So these are ways we can retain nurses, and another way is to make career development a top priority. So for nurses, and not just about being a number, in the workforce, be interested in their career development. There'll be programs, opportunities, for them to grow in their chosen paths. Promoting a culture of learning and diversity, equality and inclusion is also very important if we want to retain nurses at their posts. So we need to make sure that we promote a culture where they are able to learn, where they are free enough to explore their potentials, and of course that diversity, inclusion, and not just being an equal number or like a percentage or fraction of the workforce. It's important that we consider this. Offering a flexible work schedule is also a way that we can attract and retain nurses at their new post. uh, it shouldn't be too rigid. Pandemic has proven to us that anything can be done, even though we know sometimes we cannot offer 100% nursing care remotely. We can't do that. Nursing is healthcare, and healthcare kind of hospital like or facility based. But we've also got to realize that there's so much that we can do, off sites. Let me put it that way. So many telehealth nursing opportunities need to be evolving now. Where, patient doesn't have to go to the hospital before they get the care, the immediate care they need. And so offer that flexible work schedule. You can work remotely if you choose, and maximize that opportunity to the fullest, for the patient and also for the nurse. And of course, it's going to be like a win-win approach in that regard. So, or where I work, we have opportunity of self rostering, where you can fill in your availability based on the number of hours you are allotted. So that's another way to make it very flexible, so people don't get so burned out and stressed. Yeah. And I have 4 R's. I've said 3 R's, which I will cap it up with. Is respect. So how to retain nurses. I saw this post in kids, nurse kids post there, the blog, and I think a podcast he did as well. It's like the 3 R's. So, and these are my own 3 R's is respect. So if you want nurses to be retained at their post or in their job, you need to respect them. You need to respect their value. You need to respect what they stand for. You need to respect that they have that competence, and give them the opportunity to prove their competence. It's very important. We should stop what they call micro managing. It's not good. It's not good for nurses. It's not good for anyone. So respecting individual nurses' capability and their values, their potential is very important. And this is not just from nurse to nurse, from other healthcare professionals as well. We need to respect. So, but if you give respect, you get respect. That's the way it works. But either way, respect should be key if you want to retain nurses. Recognition is also very important. Now, recognize their work experience, recognize their career achievement, recognize the stage that they are in their career. So for instance, you can't have employ a nurse who has a PhD to a staff nurse role and not recognize their scholarly skill and competence. So we need to give them the opportunity to be able to prove and showcase their scholarly expertise in that area. So it's very important that we recognition and provide reward as well is very important. How do you reward nurses? Reward them with incentives, with vouchers, with annual leave, with some even unplanned leave, some other things, reward them with award, create innovation awards, so many things, just to boost their morale and motivate nurses. So those are my 3 R's there. So I think I've covered that question of how can nurses who are willing to relocate not only be attracted but retained at their new post. So I'll go next to the next question. It said, how can the relocating difficulties be mitigated by the potential employer? So while I was trying to prepare just to see what the best answer will fit this question, I just tried to turn it around, like how can the employer prevent or work to prevent all the relocation difficulties that we have earlier mentioned. We have talked about a lot of relocation difficulties if you want to replay. So my key here is contracts. So I have I think about 4 or 5 things there that we need to look at. Contracts. So when developing contracts for nurses, international nurses, what do we put in the contract? Are we formulating contract or policies that are what would I call it, limiting or restrictive? So this is just one thing. I've had a lot of experience, and of recent we have nurses, especially in the UK, where they are giving petitions, suing their organizations because of a contract that is limiting and restrictive. You cannot restrict nurses. You cannot restrict nurses because nurses are needed as well. So we should make the contract very open and very open, yeah, very lawful, legal, something that you can be proud of as an employer organization. We should avoid having a contract that will have a nurse to be able to pay back. I've seen a recent news where some nurses are asked to pay back because for the money spent on them for relocation, up to about 8,000, 10,000 pounds are being charged. This is very ridiculous. So we contract needs to be reviewed. And I tell nurses, new nurses or nurses migrating, that you need to pay attention to your contract. So you need to look at it. If you need help, and a third eye to look into this to make sure that you are not entering a contract that will limit you. Please, seek for help from people that are already in the system. Now, another way to mitigate the relocation difficulties, I say, is support with integration. Support within nurses need to be supported. International educated nurses or nurse migrant need to be supported through the integration process. This is completely new process, overwhelming, frustrating, and all that. So they need enough support in the documentation purpose period, which is one service that we offer. The Synergy International Nursing Network is to support the nurses in the process. The process could be very overwhelming and daunting, so we need to provide that support. documentation wise, accommodation. You can't just bring in nurses. I got a report recently of an agency that brought in some group of nurses, and I'll say abandon them, so to say, to sort out their accommodation. It is not right. It is condemnable. Like, no, it is not right. If you're bringing a nurse to a new culture, a new environment, you need to provide the enabling supportive environment for them. Accommodation is key. You don't, how will a nurse function or pass an exam or adaptation process when they are homeless? So that's just very ridiculous, and I think it's very shameful that we have organized some agencies organization doing that. So with that, there's no how you can retain the nurse. We've had nurses because of that immediately start processing relocation to another country because of what they had to experience. So please, we need to look into that. And these are some of the questions you need to ask as international nurses from your potential employers or agencies. What do they have in place? Don't just assume that these things will be provided for you. You need to seek for answers. Another way we can mitigate relocation difficulties is having a competitive package. So this is, I know so many agencies or employers have some packages, but we need to make sure that our packages are competitive. Are you offering flight service? Are you offering accommodation, like I've mentioned? Are you providing adaptation, induction, or orientation programs, supporting them with their paperwork, with their banking details and all that. So this will make them, nurses very relaxed, and to kind of prevent relocation. A timely, again, another factor that is timely response to queries, timely response, if possible, to the queries of these nurses. They have loads of unasked questions, so we should provide that opportunity to provide, that timely response and support them. Protection scheme is also very important if we want to prevent. There are so many, like I would say, liabilities there. So many complaints, queries, files, cases filed against national nurses, which are actually preventable if these nurses have, the right protection scheme for them. I want to encourage nurses. You need to join, any organization that is formed to protect nurses. You need to be part of that organization and be proactive yourself, seeking help, asking questions. So I think our employers also have to have this protection scheme, either income protection, or you're having protection when it comes to litigations and all that. So I think we need to start looking into these areas as well. So that those are few of the way I can answer that question. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. We've gone through a lot of things. We started from being talking about the future of nursing, is the future of nursing international. So we started from there. We talked about the push and pull factors when it comes to international nurse migration. We've also talked about the limiting barriers like language and cultural barriers that limit nurses. We've also talked about the administrative and bureaucratic factors for nurses when moving abroad. How limiting are these factors? I think I mentioned about 7 or 8 of these factors there. So, and of course, talking about language barrier and cultural differences, how we can improve on this. So with this, I want to say thank you so much for listening. Thank you for the opportunity. If you have any question when it comes to your international nursing migration process, feel free to contact us at Synergy International Nursing Network. We are a group of home-based, I would say homegrown nurses from Nigeria, and we actually render services to all, irrespective of your country, when you're trying to relocate to Ireland, particularly, and UK as an extension. So thank you so much. You can reach us, you can visit our website, www.synergynurse.co.uk, or you can send us an email at info@synergynurse.co.uk. Thank you again. My name is Olayinka Aremu. I'm the founder, I'm a co-founder and director of Synergy International Network. I'm also the founder of the NCO Healthcare Consulting Limited, where we provide improvements in patient care transitioning, as well as supporting and mentoring, coaching young nurses and other healthcare professionals. Thank you so much. Have a lovely time. Bye for now.